The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back with a bevy of guests. The Fab Four, the reunion of the Fab Four. Alan Blumkin, how are you, Alan?
Okay.
And David Hubler is here.
I'm here. Yes, sir.
Hal Bock.
Ready to roll.
Wonderful, Hal. Good to have you back. And Casey, George Case III. How are you?
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Yeah, we've made a great panel for going on 4 years. And first thing I want to talk about is David Hubler's move. We were talking off the air. You're in Orlando.
Yes, right in the center of the state, where no one knows how to use a turn signal, and the traffic lights are interminably long. I mean, you can sit and have a meal waiting for the light to turn green.
Come on, David. We're freezing up here in the Northeast. You're down there in the sun.
Yeah,
that's right.
I know. That's true. I'm not complaining. I'm just citing a couple of facts.
What's the first impressions of your area? What impressed you the most?
About where we are? Well,
yeah,
it's an incredibly where we are is an incredibly convenient area. My wife had reconnoitered the area, and with the aid of our real estate agent, not only did she want to be in the Orlando area near our son, but she also wanted to be in a specific neighborhood. Well, it's not that easy to just say, we're going to move to into this neighborhood, come hell or high water. But she was able to, and with the help of the realtor, of course, we found a house in the neighborhood, right in the heart of the neighborhood. And as I was saying before we went on, everything around here is named after Dr. Phillips. Dr. Phillips owned about 30,000 acres of fruit trees before he died in the 1950s. So you can imagine how barren this area was at the time. I imagined Orlando was a small town. And so as a result of his philanthropy, everything around here is named for Dr. Phillips. The Y that we work at, that's the Dr. Phillips Y. The boulevard is Dr. Phillips Boulevard. The elementary school is Dr. Phillips Elementary School. Then you go on to Dr. Phillips High School. It never ends. So every time we go out somewhere and we're listening to, we usually use the GPS now because we're not familiar with the roads. And then every time it says, turn left onto Dr. Phillips Boulevard, we say, yay, we're home.
Home at last. I'm glad you're happy. Is there anything you're disappointed in the South yet? A lifelong Northerner, and little by little, Virginia first, and now the South. Is there anything you're disappointed about?
No, not really. I mean, we've been to Florida a number of times. Like I said again when we were talking before, first of all, the traffic during weekdays is not in our neighborhood per se, but on I-4 and the main arteries into and out of downtown Orlando are just packed. They're as bad as any major city. They look like Los Angeles from the air. And then I mentioned that the traffic lights are interminably long. I mean, in fact, a cousin of mine who came down for a couple of weeks said, the traffic lights around here are just terribly long, which is true. So that's, you get used to that. It's not a major problem. At least we weren't on I-95 about a week or so ago in Northern Virginia when people, began to camp out on the highway there for about 14, 15 hours.
Well, hey, David, this is George. I wanted to mention that to you because, my son lives in Virginia, but he's at the northern part. But down there in below Richmond, I guess, is when they had that horrible.
No, you're wrong.
Where was it?
It was right up in Northern Virginia, right near where we used to live. On
really?
I-95. It was north of Fredericksburg.
Okay, because we don't. When we go down to see them, we don't even go on 95. We go out the Turnpike. But I was just curious because now that you're down in Florida, talk about traffic. But that was almost a major catastrophe.
Yes. It was.
People were stuck in their cars for 24 hours. It was a huge snowstorm. Up here in Pennsylvania, we didn't get hardly any. But, that was a southern storm, and it really hurt that area dramatically. So where you are now, I'm also curious, being in Orlando, the fact that my dad played for Washington and they trained at Tinker Field in Orlando for many years. Have you had a chance to get over to that area? I know Tinker Field doesn't exist any longer, but, that's such a tremendous baseball history area. So much went on there.
Yeah, when I was researching the Nats and the Grays, I did go down, and at that time I did find Tinker Field. It was adjacent to where the the Orange Bowl, I believe, is the big. It's not even named that anymore. The names have all changed.
The Gator Bowl.
So,
the Gator Bowl, I think.
The Gator Bowl. That's it. The Gator Bowl. Thank you, Hal. Yeah, that's the Gator Bowl. The plan at that time was the intention was to knock down Tinker Field and extend the parking area for the Gator Bowl. It is no longer there, right?
Right.
When I got a chance to go through it, get into the dugout, there was no one there. There were just construction folks working around there, so I was able to get onto the entire field, look around, get a chance to see the major league dimensions that it had, and the bust out front, there for the team when they came down to practice in for spring training. They spent a good number of years down there, and no, it is gone. It's sad that they just got rid of it, and there are a couple of stadiums now, and they all have different names, and I can't keep track of all of them.
Well, it is hard to keep track of them. I think with Tinker Field, they kept that name for so long, and it was named after Joe Tinker of the 20s. But the fact is that Tinker Field, then became the longtime home of the Washington Ball Club, and then the Minnesota Twins after the expansion to Minnesota. But I was curious if there's any marker or any indication that Tinker Field ever was there.
That's a good question. As I said, I haven't been over that way again. But there was at one point a bus of the owner, long-time owner of the team and manager.
It was for Clark Griffith, I think, wasn't it, David?
Yeah, right. Yes, yeah, a bust of him on a pedestal, and in fact, I think offhand, I know I took pictures of it, and I think one of the pictures is in the photo section of the Nats and the Grays about it being there. Yeah. But I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know whether they've kept the monument. Because in the end, I was told by one of the writers on the Orlando Sentinel that it had been used like for high school games and things like that. So it devolved into a sort of a local field. They upgraded it. I know when my dad was there, it was really rustic. It was almost like a summer camp. But I think when the Twins were there, they more or less modernized it. It was some concrete stands and that kind of thing. So it upgraded a lot. But when my dad was there, it was really pretty rustic. I've got pictures of them coming out of the clubhouse and all that stuff.
George, did your dad take the family down to spring training?
Yeah, he did. We went down many times. I was only a little boy, but I remember riding a train down there one time in a sleeper car back then. I think it took 2 nights to get there, and then another time we drove down. Orlando was some place that I sort of, would have loved to have been older because I love to fish, and there was a tremendous amount of fishing down there with a lot of lakes and just it's a beautiful area. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Our house is just one block off Lake Mary, I think. We didn't get a lakefront. Unfortunately, the one thing we would have loved to have would have been a lakefront home, but we're a block off the lake, so
right.
Can't have everything.
Well, David, I'm also curious. Orlando is such a destination with Disney and Epcot and, all that kind of stuff down there. I mean, you say the traffic is bad. I wonder if it's as bad in the summer. Of course, you're not there now in the middle of winter because so many destination people take their kids and families, down to that area for all the attractions.
Yeah. I must tell you, there's a new attraction that just leaves me in awe, and I don't understand how anyone in their right mind, because that's the key element, you have to be not in your right mind to go on this thing. It's not up on either Disney or Universal, but it's right near us. You can see it's one of two amusement rides attractions, they call them. This is called a slingshot. The slingshot consists of two giant poles up in the air. They're maybe 30 stories high, 25 stories high. And the passengers, two at a time, sit in this like a little love seat thing, which is below ground. And then at the appropriate moment, they're shot into the air by this slingshot device at 400 feet into the air at 100 miles an hour. Okay. Yes, right.
Are they wearing any protective gear? I mean, do they have a parachute?
Think they're just strapped into. Well, the big question is, how do they get back? I don't know. There was a big article in the paper about it today because the Sentinel is really like, the amusement park, what's doing today kind of newspaper. But it doesn't say how the ride ends. I mean, you get shot up into the air. Obviously, you're on some sort of cable device that brings you back. But, 100 miles an hour, 400 feet into the air, not my idea of fun.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Putting it in baseball terms, I wonder what the escape velocity is.
Yeah, right. Well, the angle of yes. Chances are they know those things.
Hey, I want to hear Hal Bock's voice, and I want to congratulate him, not to interrupt you guys. Your book was marked in the top 100 sports books of all time. Your book,
that's baseball book.
A baseball book.
The book is the book of Willard Mullins cartoons. It's Willard Mullins' Golden Age of Baseball Drawings, and it's on Esquire magazine's list of the 100 best baseball books of all time. I was blown away by that honor, and I was thrilled with it. And it just, I glow when I think about it. It was a fun book to do, a fun book to write. I wrote the narrative, to accompany the cartoons, and it was a very, very enjoyable experience. But to be on a list like that, a prestigious list like that, is really, it's humbling. It really is.
Yeah,
well, Hal, that's a wonderful honor for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sort of plaque?
Congratulations, Hal.
What?
I got a mention in Esquire magazine, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just curious. Sometimes they, you get some sort of plaque or something to...
No, I haven't seen anything in my mail, no.
Okay, keep looking. But yeah, congratulations.
The check's in the mail, Hal.
Right, that's right.
Or in Hollywood, the mail's in the check. But that's another story for another day. Hal Blumkin, what's going on in your life, my friend?
Not a hell of a lot.
Okay. Have you considered ever going out of state, living in the South?
I've got the severe mobility problems. I can't go anywhere.
Okay.
I wish I could. The biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was not getting out of here after I retired.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your work career in life. IBM in particular is what I'm curious about.
I was there for 12 and a half years. I got to the point where it was, I worked for two big bureaucracies. I worked for IBM for 12 and a half years, and then I worked for the Transit Authority, New York City Transit Authority, for 25 years.
Okay.
And the reason I retired when I did, this was just 15 years ago, was because I couldn't not the work. The work was enjoyable at times. I couldn't deal with the bureaucratic nonsense.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing a lot of the last month is dealing with various bureaucracies. It's very tough to call up a place and you get the one of those voices and hit one, hit this, hit that, and to get to speak to a real person is a miracle.
Yeah, it's like that all over. Now that's standard practice.
Oh,
you can't get a human
no matter what the bureaucracy is, it's standard practice.
Yeah. No matter what industry, it just transcends it. Alan,
and they use COVID as the excuse. Due to COVID restrictions, our services have been limited, blah, blah, blah. It's never our fault. It's somebody else's fault, like the COVID. Anyway. I don't know.
Okay, let's talk a little sports, guys.
I don't know if everybody heard, but Joe Judge, the Giants football coach, was fired today.
He was. That was on my list of things that I sent you guys.
After the quarterback sneak on the 4-yard line on 3 and 9, that was it.
Well, what was it? 4 and 13 this year? Something. Yeah.
Yeah, they were, both them and the Jets were 4 and 13.
Right, great team.
That's why you watch Red Zone. That's why I read Red Zone, so I'll have to watch those teams.
Well, a lot of lifelong New York Jet fans, when you said 4 and 13, they go, well, they won 4 games this year. Got to give them credit.
I would remind you guys that the state of New York has a football champion, professional football champion this year. The Buffalo Bills finished first in their division. So don't dismiss New York.
Well, two things. Tomorrow is the 53rd anniversary of that Super Bowl that the Jets won, which they've been living off.
That's right.
That's right.
And the Buffalo Bills are hosting New England Saturday night. I checked the weather in Buffalo, and the high is supposed to be 9 degrees.
That should be fun.
And that's without wind chill.
Wow.
Al, you mentioned that Jet fans have been living off that for a long time. But
53 years tomorrow, yeah.
My God, that was exciting for a Jet fan living in California and being the only Jet fan in my barracks. Having them win that game was just unbelievably exciting for a number of reasons. Joe Namath made that great prediction before the game, and he sounded like a jerk making it. Baltimore was a great team. You guys want to talk to the strength of the Baltimore Colts? How Bock?
Well, yeah, they came into that game favored by 17 points, which is a boatload of points. And those of us who had watched the Jets that year, including me, thought to myself, 17 points is an awful lot. Now, I don't bet. I don't have the funds to distribute to the bookmakers and the professional gamblers, so I don't bet. But I thought to myself, 17 points. This is not a bad Jets team. This is a pretty good team. Namath's a pretty good quarterback, and we just lost. He didn't catch any passes in that game, but Don Maynard was a Hall of Fame wide receiver, and they had George Sauer, who was also a wide receiver, and they had the great Matt Snell. I mean, they had some players on that team.
Emerson Boozer, Lamont.
No. Boozer was later. Matt Snell was the running back on that team, and I remember thinking Verlin Biggs on the defensive line, and Jerry Philbin. They had some players, and so I thought to myself, there can't be that much of a margin between these two teams. And don't forget, Baltimore did not have Johnny Unitas. At that point, Johnny Unitas was is on the downside, and they were using Earl Morrow, another great quarterback, but not in Johnny Unitas' class. So I thought to myself, well, I don't know that the Jets will win this game, but I don't think they'll lose by 16.5 points. And turned out they did.
That was the old AFL, NFL. They hadn't merged at that point.
That's true. That's correct.
And the Packers of the two previous Super Bowls, they clobbered the AFL teams, the Chiefs and the Raiders.
They beat Oakland and they beat Kansas City.
So there was a whole mentality that the NFL was much superior to the AFL.
Yes, that's true. But these are the same. These players are all coming out of the same place, out of major college football. So, I mean, just because you're playing in the AFL doesn't mean you're not as good a player as the guy who's playing in the NFL.
Well,
the Jets
the next year after that, the Minnesota Vikings went in as like an 11-point favorite over Kansas City, coming from the AFL, and Kansas City manhandled them.
Yep, that's true. So, I mean, that game, though, the Jet game, was a signal to the world of professional football that the AFL had arrived, that the AFL was very good. And I remember covering AFL games. It was so exciting, so much fun. It was wide-open football.
I started watching those when I was in college because the Steeler games were blacked out, and I didn't. The Steeler games were blacked out when I was at Pitt because it was home, and I didn't feel like paying money to go see them play because they weren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched the AFL games. I was one of the very few the early years of the AFL watching their games.
Somebody made mention that Don Maynard passed away. Well, that's a horrible loss. He was absolutely terrific. And I think he still holds many pass receiving records.
Yeah, he does. I saw a few obits on TV today, even on a Pro Football, the NFL Network station.
Yeah. Very few people remember that Don Maynard was a New York Giant before he became a New York Jet, a Titan at the time.
Yeah, he played very briefly for the Giants, and then he went to the Jets.
Allie Sherman got rid of him because Allie Sherman didn't like. He had sideburns. Yeah, Allie Sherman cut him because of that. Yeah.
Well, he had his reasons.
Yeah. That's what Buck. I think Buck Showalter made Don Mattingly shave his mustache.
Well, the whole Yankee organization didn't. The Yankee organization did not want any facial hair, so I wouldn't blame it on him per se. It was a rule.
Steinbrenner rule. That was a Steinbrenner rule.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys: are you happy with Buck Showalter as Met fans? I know Alan is a Met apologist, and Heshy is a Met fan. Are you happy?
No. Don't blame me. I'm not a Met fan. I gave up on them when they had they batted out of order, which was a little league trick. And I said, if they bat out of order, I'm out of here. And so I don't root for them. I observe them from a technical standpoint, but I don't root for them. Don't blame me.
I'm not an apologist for them.
Okay. Do you root for them at all, Alan?
Look, in the National League, I have a heavy burden. I'm a Pirate fan.
Right.
And they've been terrible for most of the last 25 years. But as far as the Mets winning any game that they don't play the Pirates, which is 6 or 7 times, that doesn't bother me whether they win or not. But I think the Showalter is sort of like Gene Mock. He's managed forever and never had anything close to a winner. But at least he's old school to some extent, and you're not going to have these mirror managers the way they have now, where they're slaves to the analytics.
Okay. Hey, George, who was your dad's favorite manager to play for?
It had to be Bucky Harris, probably because my dad. Bucky was my dad's manager for about 5 years, and my father considered him, the best manager in baseball at the time. And then after Bucky left, he wound up at one point, going to the Yankees and won a World Series championship for the Yankees. So, I have to say Bucky Harris. Also, I wanted to mention one thing when you guys were talking about Buck Showalter. I have a certain connection to Showalter because he managed up in Oneonta, New York, with the Oneonta Yanks in the mid '80s, and my dad managed for the Oneonta Yanks from '69 to '72. So, Showalter, that's short season A, and it's very, a lot of times. Kids coming right out of college, they're going to play baseball at that level their first year as a professional. But Showalter was well thought of manager, never surrounded by a lot of talent. The Yankee years were down. The last couple of years, Baltimore was bad. Now he's with the Mets. And the Mets have some really great young talent. So it remains to be seen. He might do a pretty good job in New York.
Yeah. Hey, George, you've given me a good segue into one of you talk about managers. The Yankees have promoted a woman by the name of Rachel Balkovich to manage the Low-A Tampa Tarpons, the first woman skipper in a team affiliated with Major League Baseball. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I do have a thought, only because I remember my father telling me that when he was at Oneonta, they had a woman umpire. I think her name was Pam Podesta. I think that where she got a start. And, a lot of the players, a lot of the managers. Yeah, they really didn't like a woman. They felt it was a man's prerogative. But today, it's a little bit different. And I'm not sure how much she's going to get cooperation from some of the old school players, but some of the new young guys, they might like it. And if she's knowledgeable and can prove herself as a manager, I think she might do well.
Well, consider she'll be managing kids that are like 18, 19 years old.
Right.
I'm not sure that they have, the maturity to accept this right off the bat. I think there could be.
Well, David, that could be. It remains to be seen. I mean,
Sure.
there's women now that have broken into the ranks of college and pro football and referees and all that kind of stuff. So it is a new age and a new world, and I guess we're going to be seeing more and more of that. But the Yankees are taking a little bit of a chance, but at that level, it's a development kind of a thing, and who knows? Yeah. She might develop into a pretty good organizational manager.
Well, of course, that the Miami Marlins hired Kim Eng, who's a woman, as their general manager. So, I mean, she has a very important post on that in that organization.
Right.
She's the highest-ranking woman in baseball. Plus, the other day I was watching basketball because I had nothing else to do, and I saw a referee, one of the referees, with a ponytail.
Right.
And I said to my wife, "There's a ponytail, a referee with a ponytail." They have women referees in the NBA. They have women officials in the NFL. So times they are a-changing, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you, Hal. They certainly are, and I think that a lot of guys our age, they would find that hard to imagine a woman. But on the other hand, it is a new age, and the equality and the women and women's sports and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's an opportunity certainly for a woman. And look on TV. I mean, how many of these sideline reporters do you see that are women now? I mean, it's almost universal. Every time they cut to the sideline, you're going to see a woman talking about, what's going on in the football field.
Absolutely.
Hey,
and don't forget the women.
The Yankees have a terrific woman announcer, Susan. What's her last name, Alan?
Susan Waldman.
Susan Waldman. Yeah,
Susan Waldman. And Alan, the reason I asked you, Susan Waldman played a big part in bringing Yogi Berra and George Steinbrenner back together. Can you enlighten us on that a little bit?
Well, what happened when Joe DiMaggio passed away in early 1999, Yogi became the biggest living icon at that point. And Stein, she asked Steinbrenner, because Yogi, after he was fired as manager early in 1985, refused to go to Yankee Stadium. So, according to the biography Yogi by John Posada came out 2 years ago, which I highly recommend. I learned things about Yogi I never even knew before. And somebody asked me, why are you reading that? You know everything. I finished the book. I said, no, I didn't. So anyway, Steinbrenner had to reach out to Yogi. So Susan Waldman brokered that. And they and there was pressure on from Carmen Berra to ask Yogi to go because they wanted their grandchildren to experience this, and so Steinbrenner walked. They did it at the Yogi Berra Museum, and Steinbrenner came out. Got there 15 minutes late, and Yogi Berra said, "You're late." And they made up. They made up, and they had a date for Yogi on July 18th, 1999. I was there, of course. As soon as I heard that day announcement, I had to go there. And that was the day David Cohn pitched the perfect game.
Well.
And they had Larson throw out the first ball to Yogi. So they were there for the perfect game, and it was just really, really exceptional. They gave Yogi every. They brought out all the teammates that were alive. They gave him all sorts of stuff, and it ended the breach. Yogi was, I think, that was what made him a national icon. Besides the quotes, is that he stood up to Steinbrenner.
Yeah, he was a much more serious guy than given credit for it in the mythology that surrounded him. Tell us a little bit about Yogi that you learned from that book, Alan.
Okay, and one of the things I learned is that he had a big offensive drop-off after 1956, and I was always wondering why that happened, and Passat put that in the book that he was just worn out for catching 150 games a year. There's a story in 1949 when he was, or 48 or 49, when they were playing a doubleheader in Washington in the middle of the summer. It was very, very hot. And Yogi begged out of catching the second game, which the Yankees lost. So he goes into the clubhouse, bantering back and forth with a couple of other players. DiMaggio is sitting in the clubhouse, totally exhausted, with his usual beer and cigarette, and he stares at Berra and says, "You're 23 years old and you can't catch both games of a doubleheader." Mm-hmm. And Yogi never, even when he was sick, didn't feel like it. Stengel wanted him out there, and Yogi hardly missed a game after that.
Alan, were you surprised when Stengel retired and Wes Westrum got the job, not Yogi?
Yogi was still, I was surprised, but maybe Yogi didn't want it. I mean, he just came off managing the Yankees for that 1 year, winning a pennant and getting fired.
Right.
And Yogi never really liked the spotlight on him too much, because the video you sent me, I saw his Hall of Fame induction. It lasted maybe 10 minutes, his speech.
Yeah. That was a nice video, wasn't it?
Very nice. Yeah, I still get that swing. Still, I still get chills every time I see that swing.
Anywhere they threw it, that's what I remember. He'd hit anything, and his famous quote, "I'm up here to swing, not to think."
The other thing is that one time Derek Jeter was swinging at bad balls and missing them. And he goes, Yogi was still, hanging around the team at that point. And he said to Yogi, he says, you swung at bad balls. And Barry said, yeah, but I hit him.
He did, too. He even hit a couple of homers on balls that bounced in front of the plate.
Yeah. But the quotes made him, and, when they established a New Jersey Resident Hall of Fame a number of years ago, and Yogi went in with Albert Einstein. And they asked Yogi what he thought about going with Einstein. He said, I heard he was a very smart guy. But Yogi was very street smart, and he's very intelligent. He just had he was not sophisticated. He had dropped out of school in the 8th grade. So, but, I mean, the Yankees have a catcher now, Gary Sanchez. Berra was not a good catcher his first 2 seasons. And Stengel brought Dickey in, and Dickey made him into a terrific catcher. Gary Sanchez, they could, as far as I see it, they could teach Gary Sanchez for 10 years, and he wouldn't improve very much.
Well, how many home runs did he hit? Did he hit 50 home runs? So close to it. Sanchez.
I don't think so.
No, that was Judge at 50 home runs.
In his first year, yeah.
Sanchez at 20, but he's gotten worse and worse every year.
He has, you're right.
And he has every time he talks, they go out to the mound, and he has to have an interpreter with them. And when they had the pitcher Tanaka, and Sanchez would go out to talk to Tanaka, you have Tanaka with his Japanese interpreter, and Sanchez with his Spanish interpreter.
Oh, that's got to be a great picture. That's got to be a great picture. Great show again tonight, guys. I love reunionizing with you. I want to go around the horn, and have you guys, starting with Heshy, some thoughts. Anything you want to complete the show with?
Okay, I'll start. All the strikes and the lockouts before this bothered me a hell of a lot, because I thought that, especially in 1994 when they were ruining history, But between what the players are making and what the owners are making, a pox on both their houses. I don't care if they sit out the whole year, like hockey did a bunch of years ago.
Okay. How about?
Well, first of all, I want to wish David good luck in his new home. That's very important. And second of all, I want to point out that we didn't mention it, but on Thursday, Eureka, the two sides in the baseball lockout are going to meet for the first time to discuss economic issues. So there's maybe the little light at the end of the tunnel.
That's what really threw me. We've had 3 months, and you mean to tell me they don't sit down once and talk about?
Well, they had no reason to in December, and
right.
January is a dead month in baseball. But we're approaching the middle of February when pitchers and catchers have to report. So there is a certain amount of urgency from the calendar.
Right.
Now, I don't expect them to settle anything on Thursday, but at least they're talking, and that's a start.
Good.
Well, which side do you think will emerge victorious? The Russians against the U.S. in the current talks, or the Major League Players Association versus the owners?
I'm betting on Sweden myself.
Yeah,
Switzerland.
The U.S. and Russia will get together before the. It's a terrible time for Major League Baseball to be in this position. They're coming out of 2 lackluster years, one of which was a shortened season. The next year, last year, was a full season, but a lot of people didn't feel the same way about baseball because of the previous season. So now you're going into the third of these 3 key seasons, let's call them. And I don't know if the fans will be back if this thing lasts much longer.
George, when your dad played, was there the opportunity for players to have any say whatsoever in labor negotiations, in anything of the kind?
Not really. Ralph, at that time, they, as Alan knows, and David and Hal, the reserve clause was in all the contracts. So if a player, and they had a lot of times negotiations, a player and the owner, they would conduct negotiations between the two of them, no agents involved. Usually the negotiations were, not over huge amounts of money. But if a player didn't sign, he was considered a holdout, and some players would opt to finally sign because they wanted to play. So it wasn't like today where you have strikes and lockouts and all that kind of stuff. It was, the negotiations were between the players and the owners, and it was a lot less pressure. The owners wanted the players to be on the team, obviously. The player wanted to get a little bit of money. I remember my dad was a holdout one year with Clark Griffith for $500. And Griffith told him at the end of the negotiation, George, I'll give you your $500, but if we don't make it up at the gate at the end of the year, I want you to pay me back.
Wow. How maybe you could shed light on this, because you knew about the Mexican League, and I think that was the first time the players got some sort of competition for their wares. And Sal Magli went down there, learned a lot of pitching mechanics.
Ralph, that was not the first time. Ralph, that was the third time. The first time was when the National League, the American League came into existence, until they made peace in 1903, and the 2 years of Federal League was in existence in 1914 and 1915.
Okay. What was the third?
The Mexican League was the third.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
wait
you.
a minute. The Federal League was viewed as an outlaw league.
What players jumped?
And they jumped back.
No, they went back after the Federal League folded up after 2 years.
Right. Well, okay. They didn't have players. They couldn't have a league, you know?
No.
So, I mean, the Mexican League was a legitimate threat because a lot of players had left Major League Baseball to go play in Mexico, and they were making good money, and what brought them back was that the threat of being barred for life from Major League Baseball. They wanted to be able to come back if they wanted to come back, and they did.
They had a suit to come back.
Vern Stevens was one of them. He went down to the Mexican League. He
never actually played in the Mexican League.
No, he went down and then he changed his mind and came back.
Yeah, he never played.
So I mean, there was a lot of fluidity there.
And Max Lanier was one who was 6-0 with an ERA of under 2 for the Cardinals in 1946. Then he jumped.
Who?
Max Lanier.
Oh, Lanier. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But you can even throw in there, if you're so inclined, the 1890s Players League. In 1890, it only lasted a season. Most of the National League players jumped to that league, and then when they coughed it up after 1890, they went back to the teams in the National League.
But you're talking about a completely different time in baseball history. I mean, the Mexican League was modern baseball. 1946, 1947, 1948. Those are modern times, and you can't. I don't think you can compare that to the dead ball era of the Federal League. It's just a different time in baseball history.
Yep. Well, for negotiations, it seems there's a similarity there.
Well, it was a wedge. It was a wedge that the players had that they didn't have in other times. You're right, but it was a paper mache wedge. You know, I mean, the Federal League was not well funded. I don't think.
Yeah, if I can just jump in here 1 second, talking about that Federal League, probably the most prominent player who involved in the Federal League was Walter Johnson.
That's correct.
And Johnson supposedly had signed with, I think, Chicago or one of those Federal League teams, and Clark Griffith had to go out and talk to Walter and say, Walter, you know what, you have a legitimate contract with me in Washington, and I'll, take you to court or whatever. And, Walter Johnson decided the Federal League was not for him, and he maintained his greatness with Washington.
But one of the side effects of the Federal League was that Connie Mack gave Eddie Collins a very big contract at that time to not go to the Federal League, and then they sold him to the White Sox. And in 1919, he was making more than most of the team combined.
It's probably why they fixed the World Series.
That's one of the reasons. Yeah, he was hated by the ones who fixed.
Hey guys, great show again. We're up against the time-wise. I value your friendships. Please keep coming back. See you the second week in February.
Pitchers and catchers.
All right.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully we'll be talking about pitchers and catchers. So
I hope so. Yep.
All right.
It gives you an indication of what both the owners and the players think about the fans. That's
they don't care.
They don't give it. Yeah. And Alan said it best, the pox on both their houses, if they can't agree to at least, if they're given the opportunity, what with the COVID, they damn sure better take it to get the season started on time. And the COVID's another issue. We're in harrowing times, and at least we have sports to divert us, and let's hope it stays that way. Stay healthy, guys. Alan Blumkin, yep. George Case III, Hal Bock, and the recently transported to the South. Can I have a one? Y'all, David Hubler.
Y'all.
All right. The
big thing is gotcha. Everybody says gotcha. You understand? Gotcha.
Gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha. Hey, we don't need no vaccines, fancy medical talk and stuff. We'll just go on the way we are. Okay. Vax up, everybody. Get boosted and stay healthy. Thanks for listening, everybody. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Ralph Tyko, and the Fab Four. Be well. Adios.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.